It like a verdict, like the house itself had saluted her. She's moving in soon. Your new mom-to-be. And now she's pregnant. She says you need to leave, because she wants your room. The grocery bag handles dug into my fingers. The jalapenos at the top clicked together with each heartbeat. Through the entryway, I could see the stairwell gallery I'd hung with a level and blue painter's tape, all the frames straight as soldiers. It was the only straight thing left in this conversation. I set the bags on the console and let the door whisper shut. For a beat, we just breathed the same air, his thick with entitlement, mine measured like I was counting to 10 without moving my lips. I turned, met his eyes. Man, I said, slow enough for the syllable to land. I even tilted my head toward him, so he couldn't pretend he'd misheard. I own this house. He blinked a little, like the word own had teeth he'd forgotten about. Then he barked out a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Don't be dramatic. We're family. Families adjust. A sandal clacked at the top of the stairs. She appeared, hand on a new ring, the other resting below a carefully rounded belly beneath a cream sweater that looked like it had never met a washing machine. Perfume drifted down the stairwell, vanilla and something citric. She looked at the railing like it already belonged to her. We'll make this easy, she called. Your room is sunnier. I need the sunlight. Doctor's orders. You can take the den. The den, I repeated, letting the word roll over the part of my brain that remembered converting it from a garage. Insulation, drywall, permits, while Dad couldn't find his wallet. The den has no closet. She smiled. You're resourceful. There are 100 ways to lose a house. Death. Divorce. Death. And there's this way too. Someone deciding your boundaries are negotiable because you've been the one fixing everything since you were old enough to sign for packages. What happens when the person who taught you what a key means tells you it doesn't mean that anymore? I slid the deed folder out of my tote. It was thick, the edges softened from miles of living. Renovation permits. Tax receipts. A line item ledger where my handwriting tracked every shingle and screw. I didn't wave it like a flag. I just set it gently on the hall table, next to a set of keys that I'd paid to copy, and said, we won't be doing this your way. Dad's jaw flexed. You're not pushing a pregnant woman out. I'm not pushing anyone, I said. But no one pushes me. Silence snapped tight, like a rope pulled from both ends. Then you can leave, he said, finally finding the threat he preferred. Tonight. I glanced past him at the dining room wall, at the faint pencil marks near the baseboard from when I measured crown molding. The house hummed, like old wood does when wind shifts. I inhaled, counted 1, 2, 3, and felt the steadiness click into place behind my ribs. I'm not leaving, I said. And if she's moving in, she'll be the first tenant in history who signs a lease she doesn't get to write. I picked up the deed folder, walked to the kitchen, and laid it on the island like a chessboard. Then I opened my laptop. There are soft ways to say no. I've used them. There are firmer ways too. This was neither. This was the part where I stopped asking anyone to remember whose name is on the door. This was the part where I made them read it. She came down the stairs like she'd been waiting for her cue, bare feet soundless on the wood, a mug of my coffee in her hand. Good news, she said brightly. We've been talking and decided you'll be better off somewhere closer to work. Fresh start. Closer to work? I work from this house. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I clicked through my laptop, pulling up the property records portal. The little spinning icon worked in my favor, buying me a long enough pause to let the tension in the room stack up like bricks. You should start packing now, Dad said, voice rough. We'll help you move your things by the weekend. I looked up, calm as I've ever been. That's generous. But I'm not going anywhere. You are. Her smile faltered. Excuse me? I rotated the laptop so they could both see the screen. The county seal glared back at them, followed by my name in black and white under. Owner of record. Then the mortgage statement. All payments current. All drawn from my account. Dad's jaw tightened. That doesn't change anything. We're a family. Families share. No, I said, leaning forward. Families respect boundaries. Tenants follow rules. You're about to be one or the other. For the first time, she didn't have a quick comeback. She just stared at the screen like it had personally betrayed her. I stood, closing the laptop. I'm heading out for a bit. By the time I'm back, decide which title you prefer, family or tenant. Either way, the rules aren't changing. Their eyes followed me all the way to the door, but no one spoke. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting my cheeks, the kind of cold that sharpens your thinking. I didn't have to fight them to win this. I just had to let them make themselves comfortable, because the longer they believed they could take over, the more satisfying it would be when I showed them the eviction date I'd already circled on my calendar. 2 mornings later, I woke to the sound of my own dresser drawers being opened. I stepped into the hallway to find her halfway in my room, holding my winter coat in one hand and a black trash bag in the other. "Thought I'd help you get a head start," she said, her tone so falsely sweet it could rot teeth. I leaned on the doorframe, crossing my arms. "That coat's worth more than your engagement ring. Put it back." Her nostrils flared. "You know, your father and I have been talking. You've been here too long. It's not healthy for a grown woman to cling to her childhood home." I let out a quiet laugh. "Funny. I was thinking the same thing about grown women moving into homes they don't own." Dad appeared behind her, clearly having heard enough to feel the need to mediate. "Clara," he sighed, "you're making this harder than it needs to be. She's pregnant. She needs comfort. We all need to compromise." Compromise, I repeated, like I was testing a foreign word. That would require both sides giving something up. "So far, all I've heard is you taking." His brows knit together. "This isn't about taking. This is about family." I stepped closer, lowering my voice until it was just for him. "Then you should have remembered that before you tried to evict your own daughter from the home she bought." Her hand tightened on the trash bag. "We're not going to be bullied out of what's fair." I smiled, slow, deliberate. "You're right. I don't bully. I document." What they didn't know was that every moment like this, the uninvited entry into my room, the attempts to move my belongings, was already being logged. Date, time, photo. I stepped back, giving them the full width of the hallway. "Go ahead," I said, gesturing toward the room. "Make yourselves comfortable." Because the more they crossed lines, the stronger my case would be. And when I decided it was time to end this, I wouldn't just be kicking them out. I'd be doing it with the law in my corner and a paper trail they couldn't erase. By the end of the week, they'd stopped pretending to be polite. Her shoes were by the front door. Her coat hung on the rack I'd built from reclaimed oak. Even the mail on the counter had her name on it, written in a looping, self-satisfied script that seemed to dare me to touch it. One evening, I came home to find the living room rearranged. My sofa was pushed against the wall, the armchair gone, and in its place a brand new rocking chair. White paint, pale cushions, a pink throw folded neatly over the back. "This will be the baby's spot," she said from the kitchen, like she was announcing the winner of a raffle. I set my keys down slowly. "The baby's not born yet, but you're already making it hers." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You'll thank me later." Dad stepped in, leaning against the counter with that weary, "You should just give and look. Clara, she's nesting. It's natural." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked to the bookshelf, pulled down a thick envelope, and slid it across the counter toward him. Inside was a printed copy of the lease agreement I'd drafted that morning, with their names already typed in under tenants. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Options," I said evenly. "You can sign and pay rent, or you can leave. Either way, it's legal now." Her mouth fell open. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious," I said. "And before you say anything about family, remember, you stopped treating me like family the moment you told me to get out of my own house." They didn't touch the envelope. I didn't push it closer, because this wasn't about making them agree in the moment. It was about planting the seed, the awareness that every inch of ground they thought they'd claimed was still mine. And soon, I'd prove it in a way they couldn't ignore. By the following week, the air in the house had changed. It wasn't just tense anymore, it was territorial. I'd find her laundry in my dryer. My spices shuffled around in the pantry. Once, She even accidentally moved my office chair into the garage to make space for the nursery rocking chair. I didn't argue. I didn't touch a single thing she altered. Because I wasn't building my case anymore. I was arming it. Every petty invasion was photographed. Every remark documented. Every date and time stamped in a neat, secure folder she didn't know existed. One afternoon, I came home early and caught them in the backyard. Dad was pacing, clearly mid-rant, while she stood with her arms crossed. "She's bluffing," he said. "She wouldn't dare kick us out. Not her own father." I opened the sliding door just enough to step outside. "You really want to test that theory?" They both turned. She smirked. "You think a judge will side with you over a pregnant woman?" I didn't even blink. "Yes. Especially with a signed lease you refuse to honor." Her smirk faltered. Dad looked at her, something flickering in his expression, doubt, maybe fear. I walked back inside without another word, but I knew that tiny fracture in their confidence had finally appeared. And soon it would spread. Day 42 of my silent countdown. By now, I could map their routines without thinking. She slept until 10, padded around in my slippers, and spent the afternoons nesting, which really meant dismantling parts of the house to fit her taste. Dad came home from errands smelling faintly of sawdust, always with some new project they decided on without asking me. That morning, a delivery truck pulled up. 2 men carried in a massive crib, the kind that looked like it belonged in a catalog for people who liked to pretend money grew on trees. She didn't even glance at me as they set it up in my bedroom. I leaned on the doorway, watching the polished wood go up piece by piece. "You know," I said casually, "it's funny you're putting that there. In 30 days, you're going to have to take it apart again." She froze mid-direction to the delivery guy. "What?" Dad's voice came from behind me. "Clara, enough. We told you." I turned to him, calm, even bored. 30 days, Dad. That's when the notice expires. That's when the locks change. That's when you're no longer my problem. Her eyes darted between us. "You're bluffing." I stepped into the room, running my hand over the crib's edge. "The difference between us? I don't bluff. I file." The color drained from her face just enough for me to catch it. Dad shifted uncomfortably, like he'd just realized this wasn't going to end with a family group hug. I walked out, leaving the sound of the Allen wrench clicking against the crib bolts behind me. In my office, I opened the email thread with my lawyer, scrolling to the latest message. Everything's in order. 30 days exactly. They have no legal standing. I sat back in my chair, letting the satisfaction settle. Because there's a certain peace in knowing the clock is ticking. And you're the only one who can hear it. Day 29. The air in the house was sharp, thin, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. I came home to find her in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, voice low but urgent. "She's not serious, no. She can't. Dad says she's bluffing." She froze when she saw me, then turned her back like that could erase the words I'd just heard. Dad came in a moment later, holding 2 mugs of coffee, one for him, one for her. Not a third in sight. "Clara, you've made your point," he said. "Now, let's be reasonable." Reasonable. That was his favorite word when he was asking me to give something up for his comfort. I set my bag down, slow and deliberate. Reasonable was you staying in your own place. Reasonable was you asking before moving her in. We're way past reasonable. Her eyes narrowed. "You're going to throw out your own father?" I met her stare. "I'm going to remove 2 people who've made it clear they don't respect me or my home. Biology doesn't give you a free pass to treat someone like a guest in their own life." They didn't speak after that. But I could feel it, the panic setting in, the quiet calculations in their heads about where they'd go next. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, lit only by the glow of my laptop, and pulled up the final paperwork. Move-out order. Lock change authorization. Security deposit refund, because even when you're ending it, you do it clean. I signed each page with steady strokes, the pen scratching against the paper like it knew this was the end. Tomorrow wasn't just the last day of my countdown. It was the day I'd reclaim every square inch they thought they could steal. The morning of day 30 was quiet in the way a battlefield is quiet before the first charge. The movers arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Their boots echoed through the hall as they hauled and folded boxes and packing tape. I stayed in the kitchen, sipping coffee, letting the sound of cardboard tearing fill the space where my father's voice used to boom. She appeared first, hair messy, eyes wide, clutching a robe at her chest. "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I have. Everything you own will be packed and delivered to the address you provided for the deposit refund." Her jaw trembled. "We don't have another address." I met her eyes for the last time. "Then you should have thought about that before you tried to take mine." Dad came in, slower than her, shoulders slumped. For once, there was no lecture, no defense. He just looked around at the half-empty living room, like he was realizing too late how temporary it all had been. When the last box was carried out, I walked to the front door and held it open. They crossed the threshold together, the movers following with the last of their things. The locksmith's van was already waiting at the curb. As soon as they were gone, the door closed behind them with a clean, final click. I stood in the entryway for a long moment, listening to the quiet settle in like an old friend. I hadn't just kept my house. I'd reclaimed my life. That night, I lit a single candle in the living room, the air smelling faintly of fresh paint and freedom. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. Some victories don't need an audience.